Jazza VRtist Armor, Part 2. We're sealing, painting, and finishing all the armor pieces. The armor wasn't quite ready for paint. First, the pieces needed painting handles attached, which will also let them hang to dry. Wire hooks were stabbed through the foam handles. I tried to double up most of the smaller pieces onto one hook, making sure to leave enough room to paint around the edges. We also converted some smaller clamps into hangers. You could just brush on acrylic paint straight onto the foam, but after some wear, the paint will start to rub off, and acrylic paint on its own tends to wrinkle when it's flexed. We have a video on different ways to seal foam that I'll link down below. Creature cast neoprene rubber was used for the armor pieces. This material air dries and stays pretty flexible. Thickening the liquid makes applying the neoprene much easier. Without the thickener, the neoprene tends to bead up and drip. 2 layers were brushed on the entire surface of each armor piece. Hand brushing allows the recesses to get coated, and extra material was just brushed away. The white creature cast looks white, but it will dry pretty transparent, kind of like PVA glues like Mod Podge. For the next few layers, I switched to a critter spray gun. A mason jar mixture of the neoprene and the thickener was screwed on. The air compressor was set to 25 psi, and after some nozzle height adjustments, the next layer was sprayed onto the armor. After each piece, I cleaned out any dried neoprene that may clog the gun. For the next layer, I wanted to try putting pigment straight into the neoprene, since a thin layer of the rubber dries clear. I picked up carbon black pigment powder. This is a powder you can use to mix your own paints, and also looks like Oreo cookie crumbs. I didn't have any white pigment powder, so I added normal white acrylic to mix a gray color. This is a bit tricky since the mixture will look much lighter in color until the creature cast dries. This soon-to-be dark gray layer was sprayed onto all the surfaces and left to dry. The finish turned out pretty well. There are a couple lumps in the finish that are either dried chunks of neoprene or maybe some of the white acrylic. The foam is still super flexible, which is great since this has to survive a Jazza VR session. Some parts are supposed to be a lighter gray, so I tried out a different white acrylic. This one seems to work better since it's pretty liquidy to begin with. Then, parts of the armor were tinted lighter gray. Painter's tape was used to mask off areas that needed to keep their color. The trick is the tape needed to be removed before the neoprene dried. Otherwise, the rubber on the tape would peel off and stay on the armor. The tape actually stuck too well to the creature cast, so I removed some of the tackiness by pre-sticking the tape to the table or to my pants. The lint on jeans works great to destroy tape quality. It's worth investing in a masking wand to help speed up this process. A silvery blue mixture of paint was added to the neoprene mixture and then sprayed onto the tubes, which ended up looking mostly blue, but I think it still looks nice. After letting the creature cast fully dry for a day, the finish is only slightly tacky. To remove the tackiness and give the colors more of a matte finish, I sprayed on a thin layer of matte varnish. Since Jazza will be wearing this on a green screen, we tried to keep the finishes as matte as possible so no green screen would be reflected onto the armor. All the recesses and indented corners were brushed with black acrylic paint. The excess was wiped away with a damp towel. The painting handles needed to be cut away, but it was a pain to cut through the neoprene. Melting them free with a hot knife was much more fun. I made sure to work near an open window and wear a respirator while melting foam. My lightly superglued connections were pretty brittle and most of them tore free with a little force. I had leftover plastic mesh from my Sweeperbot costume that looked like it would be perfect for the mesh parts in Jazza's costume. The mesh was cut and hot glued into place. And the same mesh was used for the hand covers. PETG plastic is a flexible transparent plastic that doesn't like to shatter. It's like what soda bottles are made out of. The lights that will glow through this V symbol needed to be diffused, so I sanded the plastic. 600 grit seemed to work the best to rough up the surface and not leave noticeable grain streaks. I sanded both sides since I don't want a green reflection on the plastic. PETG is flexible enough to hot glue into gentle curves. Another plastic strip was used for the left gauntlet. Then it was time to attach all the armor pieces. We bought these rolls of industrial strength Velcro that's a really great deal if you make a ton of costumes. The soft loop side has more of a fabric-like backing and it bonds to hot glue really well. The hands need a lot of flexibility, so I only stitch on a small square of the hook side on the gloves. This way the armor can move pretty freely. A lot of the armor is held on with elastic strips. The elastic will peel away from hot glue, so I sewed on some nylon webbing straps to the attachment areas. The other side of the elastic got the hook side of the Velcro. I cut through and peeled away the neoprene before adding hot glue. Also, scoring in lines helps give the glue more surface area to grab onto. This is one of the first pieces I did, and I didn't peel away the neoprene, but I did for the rest of the build, just to make a stronger connection. The bottom part of the ankle armor was attached the same way. To keep the armor in place, I glued in chunks of upholstery foam. I try to start out with as little foam as possible to allow more airflow, otherwise foam costumes can get pretty warm. For the back of the ankle, I added a buckle attached to elastic with a slider adjustment on one side. I got a little lazy and just hot glued the upper knee armor straight onto the plastic shin piece. I bet if I tried, I could peel this piece right off. It's probably the most fragile part of the whole costume. The chest piece got some thicker pieces of upholstery foam, leaving room for airflow and electronics. A big strip of Velcro connected the shoulder straps to the back armor. The sides of the torso piece were attached with buckles and straps. Lots of extra material was left on these connections for adjustments. The shoulder armor was hung from 2 straps that glued onto the shoulder and then Velcroed onto the torso armor. Hot glue attached the back tubes to the bottle tops. They can still unscrew if needed. The bottles were temporarily attached with tape. They'll get glued in place once a lighting is added. 2 elastic straps were used for the bicep armor. The elastic was looped around an adjustable slider and a strap was carefully glued on either side. Adjustable elastic was also attached to the forearms. I thought about adding buckles, but these pieces can just slide up the arms. They just need to be put on before the gloves. The belt was made from a wider nylon strap and buckle. I needed to attach a lot of stuff to the belt, so I cut a long strip of Velcro to attach all the way along the belt. All the attached pieces will have the hook material and can be adjusted around to fit different belt sizes. The decorative buckle was glued right onto the plastic buckle. This time, I cut in some channels to hopefully help the foam stick to the plastic. A strap was glued on each side of the hip armor, and the pieces can be adjusted to a different part of the belt if needed. The pouches wanted to tilt a bit, so I added a foam spacer for the Velcro attachment. This back pouch has a Velcro spacer and a strip of foam glued on to keep the angle straight. And with the side pouches added, all the armor was assembled and wearable. The lights aren't in the costume yet. We've been busy moving into a new shop.
Yay!
Oh, I can put my hands in here!
Yay!
Which is really awesome, but during the process, our projects were put on hold. I don't want to rush the lighting, so there will be a part 3 video going over all the lighting techniques, and that'll be out in the next week or 2. Thank you for watching this build, and thank you for your patience with our release schedule. I really appreciate it, and I want to make sure I share the whole process with you. I've been learning a ton from this project. I want to play around with pigment powders more, maybe try and mix my own paints. I need more practice with creature cast, and every time I try and make armor fit onto something, it's a new experience. Stick around for the final video where we show how all the lights are installed. The back containers are going to be different colored lights, so I think it's going to look really awesome. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.